Ooh. It's just a bunch of hocus pocus. Oh, I forgot my paper.
Back up. Give me some space. Hello. Let me take off my hood. I don't know why I had it on. I think we all know what this video is supposed to be about. If you don't, I recommend reading the title. I want to just jump right in. So basically I'm going to be talking about Hocus Pocus 2. If you have no idea what that even is, how did you even click on this video, first off? And second off, how? Hocus Pocus, just the first one, first movie. Great movie. For this video, I want to start off by talking about the first movie, because I feel like to talk about the second movie, I have to talk about the first movie. It clearly was a sequel to a movie that already existed, which is why it's called Hocus Pocus 2. So Hocus Pocus was, originally made in 1993, before I was even born. I mean, it's an old movie. Movies were made differently then. The movie itself was a good classic Halloween movie. Had everything you needed to be a family movie. It had a good story. It was scary enough that you could watch it during Halloween, but it wasn't like terrifying horror movie. People were like dying the whole time. And it always made me cry. I definitely always shed a tear towards the end. There's no way I can ever watch a movie without crying. To prepare for the second movie, I watched the first movie and I cried. The first movie has a lot to it. Great, it's classic. It has a good place in people's hearts, including mine, and I would watch it every single Halloween because it's like one of those movies that you watch every Halloween with your family. It's a good family Halloween movie. When I originally watched the first movie, and I remember at first it was scary. I was scared of the movie. I thought it was really scary, especially the witches and some of the scenes. Even I was always scared by it. So it had that scare factor to it. And like years later, it's not as scary now if I watch it, but it's enough. You don't feel like you're watching like a rip-off Halloween movie, Like some Halloween movies now they don't have that scariness to it. That's not like you're gonna die by watching it. When I say Hocus Pocus is scary, I don't mean it's like knocking your socks off and you're going to bed quivering. It's enough. I watch a lot of ghost hunting shows. Those give you enough to you're like, ooh, but you're not really like terrified from watching them. It's that kind of thing. The good movie had that, and it was great because of that. That's what I loved about the first movie, basically. It had a good story. The story was easy to follow. There was enough to it. You were kind of scared, but not like you're gonna wet your pants scared. And the characters were great. That's the other thing. The cast. I mean, the witches were great too. They played that part great. And the cast, we had Allison and Danny, and I think Max was the boys. They were great. They were characters I could like immediately vibe with and relate to. I mean, Max was like the teenager that didn't care about anything and hated moving to a new town. I've never moved, but I could relate to that. I could see it and be like, yeah, I was a teenager at one point. That's kind of how I was. And Danny was just a little girl that wanted to go trick-or-treating. Very simple, easy stuff you can like connect with. You got to know the characters. You weren't like best friends with them, but you knew them enough to be able to watch the movie. It started off with the backstory of Thackeray. For the longest time, I thought his name was Zachary until I watched it like this year. I rewatched the first one. I had subtitles on, and it said his name was Thackeray. I had no idea. And then Emily. You got to like go way back and see that scene. I think that was a good way to set up the movie. You really get a little bit of backstory. Okay, enough about the first movie. Let's go into the second movie, because that's what this video is about. It's actually about Hocus Pocus 2. No matter how much I love the first one and how much I would love to talk about the first one, let's talk about the second one. Just so you know, this is a review and me talking about Hocus Pocus 2. So there is going to be spoilers. I don't know how I could make a video about it without doing spoilers. So if you haven't watched the movie yet, I would not watch past this point. First things first, the cast. They have the same witches that came back. The Sanderson sisters, they're the same actors. They did a pretty good job making them look the same. Their faces sometimes looked a little weird, a little different, and it was filmed like 25 years later. People age, so considering that, I think they did a good job. And the main characters, I don't even know who's supposed to be like the actual main character. Like in the first one, was it the witches? Was it like Danny, Max? Like, I don't even know. Everyone else aside from the witches, and I guess that zombie guy, Billy. He came back too. I think it was a different actor though. I don't remember though. But like most of the cast were different. which I don't know what I was expecting going in. I didn't watch the trailer or anything. I wanted to be like fully like, here's the movie. And I watched it the day it came out. So I was ready for it. What I was expecting was not what I got. I thought maybe they're going to do something where it was like the original cast had like kids or something. I didn't even know that none of them were coming back. I thought maybe they would bring back one of them and then the kids would summon the witches. That's just kind of what sequels do sometimes. That's what I was expecting maybe. Or seeing them as like adults, but the cast that they had were teens like how they had before. So it was like the same idea, which makes sense. But the teens were different because the movie was filmed 25 years later. The generation evolves and people are different in high school now than they were in the 1990s, I mean. And the vibe was just different. The main girls, they were all girls this time. I just felt like I wasn't watching Hocus Pocus 2 because like the cast was reminding me like I was watching some witch show, like Charm. There's another one I can think of that like they've made where it's like 3 witches. Oh, what's that show called? I literally watched a show. 3 girls and they were using like a spell book or something. If I remember, I'll put it up. The show I was thinking about was called Just Add Magic, by the way. It's on Amazon Prime. That's what it kind of reminded me of, that vibe, because they were so much different than the cast before, and we never really got to know them. I didn't really know these girls very much. I don't even really remember their names that much. And the confusing thing is, you never really get to see anything really about them other than they're weird and kind of into witch stuff. I mean, I think that's really all we learned about them. And one of the girls dressed kind of spunky. There was 3 girls. 2 of them you saw at the beginning. Like a 3rd girl, but she's like not in the group. I don't know. I didn't even really know what her name was. And apparently her dad was the mayor.
She went on something called GMA, which is like some acronym for fancy people. I don't really get it.
Which I didn't even get until they called him and said, hey, Cassie's throwing a party. No wonder he was so friendly with them. Maybe he was a friendly teacher. No, he's the mayor. Okay, maybe he's just a really friendly neighbor.
You have to have one of her caramel apples. It will...
No, wait, that's weird. And maybe that's not my part, not paying attention or just like really bad at figuring stuff out and connecting things in movies. I can't be the only one that didn't figure that out, right? Please tell me I wasn't the only one. The cast was confusing because in the first movie it was very clear, okay, they're siblings, okay, he likes this girl, okay, these are his parents. I mean, it was very clear. But I guess in the first one you never really got to know much about Allison. Well, it did talk about her family a bit, and she was clearly like rich. She had a huge house, so I just felt like I didn't really get to know or vibe with the cast. The storyline, maybe it's just because it was so different than what I expected, but I didn't really like it that much. The story was less about the witches sending them back. It was just more about joking around and trying to get away, sneak away from them, but then they would constantly be like, where you going? They got thrown in the basement for like ever, and I was like, why don't you just like call someone? And then it switched to more of them doing spells themselves, and then the whole idea switched from, oh, the Sanderson sisters are back. Wait, you are a witch and you have powers? What is going on? I like the idea. I think it's interesting that they went that route, and it's definitely different from the first one, but I was very confused why they were trying to make them the new witches. The story started off with a flashback just like the first one. I liked that. I liked the first scene. You got to be like, figure out why the Sanderson sisters ended up like hating people, how they got magic, connecting it with like another witch before them who then handed it down to them. Now that I know the story, it makes sense why they show the first part. Then it ended with them handing it down to the other 3. And then like the rest of the movie, after the first scene to like maybe the ending scene, was just more about making jokes. It was very focused on like the comedy aspect. It's like they wanted to make it really funny. And there were some scenes that I laughed at, and there were some scenes that I kind of was sitting there like, a mix up in there. Some scenes, I think they were trying to make it funny, but I didn't find it funny. It didn't appeal to me. In my humor, another thing I need to talk about is the music in the movie. The first movie, we all know the iconic song, I'll put a spell on you and you'll be mine. They didn't even sing that in the second movie. There was one scene, they got up on like the stage or something. They're gonna sing the song. What if they sing that song? That would connect it back to the first movie. That would save the movie. And I was so excited. I was waiting for them to sing it. They did sing
one way or another,
but they sang a different song and I hated it. You had your chance and you blew it. don't know if they just couldn't use this song. I don't know how rules work. It's good to have new songs. I mean, like a lot of like musicals, they didn't just reuse all the same songs. It had been 25 years and I expected them to use that song. And they didn't. I hated all of the music scenes. Not because they weren't like good at singing or anything. It's just because the first movie, the songs were like a certain way. In this movie, they made it into like pop songs. It was like they were performing a show during these scenes. It was a different generation or different genre of music, I guess. And I didn't like it. I felt like it was weird to put in a Halloween song. Now they're like performing on the stage and singing like some weird pop song. I don't even know if it was pop. I'm just using the word pop. It wasn't like the song before. And they were like in the woods singing and dancing.
Yeah, the spell is gonna hit you 'cause the witches are back.
Are they like on a reality TV show? I just really wanted to talk about the music in it. The story was different. Maybe that's a nicer way to say it. The story I could see being good. I like the idea of being like passing it down to another witch, I guess. It was kind of weird. Unorganized, like they shot some parts and never finished it. It's like they should have added more to the story. Like most of the story was just making jokes and making it funny and less about an actual story. I mean, what was the problem? The sisters showed up and they were trapped in the basement, and I guess at the end they were trying to do that big powerful spell, and I guess the conflict became they had to stop them. It just became kind of weird. It's like they never fully solved it, or the way they solved it was very easy. And the ending, I watched it with my sister. I think we both can agree we hated that ending. It was weird. I didn't like it. The actor who plays Winnie, the main witch, is probably very nice. She's probably a very nice lady. Winifred, she is not a nice person. From any of the other movies we watched, she's mean, she's sassy, she has a temper. I mean, we literally saw her as a child and she was rude. But in the very end, I understand she messed up this stupid spell or whatever, and her sisters went poof. I just didn't like how her vibe completely switched and did like a 180.
Oh my god, please help me. I beg of you.
Might have been like trying to redeem the characters at the very end, like trying to make the witches like a good person, but that's not what they were. That's like if you had an antagonist who suddenly at the end was like, you know what, I don't want to be bad anymore. Would that make a good story? I mean, that's not how most stories are. It just was weird to watch. And like these girls are what, like 16 or whatever? This girl just got powers. She just figured out she's a freaking witch. What is she supposed to do? And suddenly she knows exactly what to do. And yeah, I know the book is freaking magic, whatever, and probably helps her. It seemed too perfectly planned out because it's a freaking movie and it is planned out. No. Nope. Literally don't have much else to say. And then I guess we're supposed to assume that they both died. They all died. And then now these guys are gonna keep the book and become the new witches. Then of course it ends with them walking away and then the bird swoops down or whatever. So they're kind of hinting they're gonna make a third one, which people are hoping that it would be better than the second one. What can you do though? You decide to make the movie years later. Half your cast don't look the same or didn't want to come back or were busy. I don't know. What are you supposed to do then? Maybe it would have been better if they kept it at one. The first one did end. Didn't really have a cliffhanger. It had a good ending. It was sad and it made me cry. It had like a solid ending. They didn't have to make a second one. They did because it was a popular movie and I was really, really excited for it. They could have made another Hocus Pocus, but maybe not make it like a sequel. Make another movie based off from Hocus Pocus. Like how they make so many freaking Cinderellas. They could have done something like that. They decided to make a sequel. They're gonna get a lot of money. A lot of people are gonna watch it because we all loved the first one and we were desperately waiting for the second one. But is this what we wanted? I don't really know. I feel like I can't be mad at Disney though. There were some parts in the movie I did enjoy. There were some scenes that I laughed at. When they started eating the frickin' products in Walgreens, I was a little disturbed, but I did kind of chuckle. I think it was more because my sister made a joke that I actually laughed at it. Because she said, imagine if you walked into Sephora and you saw that, what would you do? And I said I would probably throw up and then leave. I mean, what would you do? Some of the scenes I laughed at just because of the jokes me and my sister are making. I don't know if I would have laughed if I was by myself. So that's Hocus Pocus 2. I talked about the beginning, the end, the shit in between aren't even rememberable enough, and I watched it like three months ago. Ooh, special. My review of Hocus Pocus 2, if I had to say in like one sentence, I would say it could have been better. It could have been worse, but it could have been better. Sorry, I kicked my tripod. But seeing what they had to work with, at this point they probably just wanted to make a quick movie that they knew people would watch and they would make money on. There is hope that maybe they do make a third one and it's better. They give us that story that we're seeking. And if they do make a third one, it's going to be focused on these 3 new witches instead of the Sanderson sisters probably. So it would be like a brand new freaking story. Hocus Pocus 2, the story in it can be great. I can definitely see an 8-year-old watching it and loving the movie. I don't really see it for adults because movies have changed so much through the years. I know personally with me, I see a lot of movies my parents like that I'm like, that movie's so old, ew. But they love it. So for some kids who see Hocus Pocus 1, they could be the same way. Ew, that movie's old. But they're gonna love the second one because it's made in a very different vibe geared towards kids. That's why I didn't connect with these characters.
That's not how I was in high school.
I related to Max in the first movie. It just was aimed towards the wrong generation, which I find it so weird because they know the first movie was made so long ago. Maybe it's just how I felt, but it just felt like very typical Disney movies now that they make that have these jokes in it that some of them you can laugh at, but some you're like, yeah, that's for a child. I would watch this if I had like a 10-year-old. I mean, it is a family movie and it is supposed to be focused on comedy. It was too much focused on that. The first movie didn't just focus on comedy. They might have had some scenes that were supposed to be funny. The whole movie wasn't focused on let's make it really funny. It was like an actual Halloween movie with kind of a scary plot with witches chasing them down and trying to like kill them for the book that they had. The witches in this one didn't even seem that scary towards the new girl. The scariest thing they did was like lock them in the dungeon thing. They threw them in the basement and like that was it. That was like the scariest thing that happened during the movie. Tell me, were you really scared watching it? I wasn't. It almost felt like I was watching a parody of the first movie. Like someone took the first movie, made a new story, poking fun of Hocus Pocus. That's what it felt like. Ending, wrapping this all up because I've been walking way too long. I'm sorry. What? Say that again. Wrapping this all up because I've been walking way too long. I've been talking way too long. I want to end with an actual rating. 1 out of 5 stars. My rating for Hocus Pocus 2 is a 2 out of 5 stars. That's kind of low. I'm so sorry if you loved the movie. Some people will love this movie. My sister probably enjoyed it way more than I did. Every movie isn't made for everyone. There are some movies that not everyone likes. Just personally for myself, how much I enjoyed it was pretty low. And I can't say it's like a 1 star. There were some scenes that I enjoyed. The movie had a charm to it. The movie wasn't aimed for me, and that's okay. It had potential, but it didn't fully reach it. And the story could have been better, the characters could have been developed better, the plot could have been better, the ending could have been better. And just because you bring back the old witches doesn't magically make the movie a success, a 5 out of 5. Like, it was great to see them, but just having them doesn't make the movie. You still have to do some more work. And it's almost like they were really focused on just, oh, if we bring in the original cast and the witches, you know, that would be great, and then everyone would watch it. But there are additional steps that they didn't take. 2 out of 5. That's why my review of Hocus Pocus. I don't know why I started saying that. That's basically all I wanted to talk about. And I don't want to rant a whole lot because I already talked a whole bunch. So if you have watched the movie, please let me know how you thought about it. Some people are going to be like, wow, the movie was great. What the frick are you talking about? I really want you to tell me if you liked it or not. If you liked it, tell me why you liked it. Or if you didn't like it like me, tell me why. And maybe it's a lot of the same reasons I mentioned. Or maybe you didn't like it for a whole nother reason. And that's okay. That's the thing with movies. Everyone's going to have their own opinions. Anything like art, creative things that you make, not everyone's going to love it. I just love to hear other people's opinions about the movie because it was a whirlwind to watch. I still feel like I'm processing it in my head and trying to figure out if I really even watched the second one. Like, I feel like I'm still waiting for the second one and I already watched it. So that's my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Like and subscribe if you liked this video. I now actually have a upload schedule. What the fuck was that? That is my lungs trying to breathe because I've been talking for like a half an hour. Let me take a sip of water real quick. Okay, like I was saying, I actually have an upload schedule now. I upload on Saturdays in the mornings every single week. If you like this video or you like any of my other videos, come back on Saturdays and watch it, vibe with me, and hang out with me, and goodbye. If you were a Hocus Pocus character, what character would you be?